What's going on, guys? I'm Retro Bliss, and you are on the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. Welcome for everybody who's watching over from Mike's Gaming Gala. It's being simulcast over there. We welcome you as well. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to talk about the games that influenced us most as gamers and why. And it's not like the industry, it's just how they influenced us as individuals. And so without further ado, let's bring on the panel first. Mike for Mike's Gaming Gala, Brian from BD Retro Mods, and my very, very, very special guest, Dr. Scott. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
That was at least one too many varies.
You've been hard on him already today. But anyway, we were, when we do the podcast, you guys may think that things run very seamless and smooth, but it doesn't always. And part of the biggest problem that we have from week to week sometimes is just picking a topic. And we have a special Discord that we have where we talk about these kind of things. And Mike suggested this as a topic. And I at first thought he meant the top 5 games that influence the industry, but he said no. The ones that influence you, me, and whoever else may be on the panel individually as gamers. And so I actually like that idea much better than what I had originally thought that he meant.
It means that everybody's list will be different.
Yeah. And we have not shared our lists with anybody here. I have put the disclaimer out, and I believe the other guys have as well, that you guys may be thoroughly surprised and you might scratch your heads a little bit as to what our choices are and why they are. But so I think it's going to be a great show.
I agree.
So I think what we need to do is just get the ball rolling. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with Mike. Now, I will tell you this when it comes to mine. Now, theirs may be, but mine are not in any particular order. These are just my top 5.
I've got a rough order on mine. It's so difficult to place.
Yeah. So, talk to us, Mike. Tell us what you're thinking.
All right. So, in my number 5 list. So again, these are not necessarily my favorite games. These are not my, games that I think influence lots. And some of them, in fact, a lot of them may not be even the first of their genre, but they are the first where I experienced something new. And so the first one on my list, and in fact, I want to say an honorable mention. I didn't put this one on my list because we're limiting to 5, but Space Invaders was the first video game I ever played. And so if you're talking about influence, the first game I ever played, it was my dad's favorite. And, certainly that was an influential one. But in my number 5 slot is an NES game called Astion X.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
If anyone...
Yeah.
So one of the things for me, so Astion X came out on the NES in 1989. I got my NES in 1989, so we had rented it, and it was the first time I ever played a game where, first of all, the music in that game is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It is awesome. The gameplay itself is kind of so-so. It's certainly not the best side-scrolling platformer beat-em-up kind of thing. But then just the atmosphere and the fact that it had a story in-game that you didn't have to read from the manual, and it had cutscenes between each level. And I remember as a kid, the opening to the game is like you're a guy walking down the street, and you hear your name being called, and your name is Astion X because that's such a super common name. And it's like this, and it's this fairy, and you get sucked into this other world, and you become a warrior, and you have to save the princess of that realm. And at the end, spoiler alert, it's been since 1989. If you didn't know this, well, too bad. But like it's like a reflection of yourself that you end up battling. And at one point in time, the fairy dies, and it's just so dramatic. And I remember that first boss. Like you got to the end of that first stage, you fight this like rock boss that he turns into a ball, like a rock ball, and moves around. And then you think you're done. And then you go into this other stage, and it has like the boss even has a dramatic entrance. And it's like this dragon with a goblin head and this really sinister guy riding it. And it comes in and the music's like dun 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 dun. And as a 10, 11-year-old, pardon my French, but that was just a wow, shit got serious. Like, and I remember like just I was intimidated. It was just the first time a game ever made me feel like that.
Wow.
No, and no, I love that game. I played it a lot. I never did beat it, but for all the same reasons you said, it was really good. And what's even crazier, which didn't know it at the time, but it was based off the arcade game, but the arcade game is completely different than
yes.
the
I
NES
learned
game.
about the arcade game years later.
Right.
I had never played it until I started collecting, and if I'm being honest, I hadn't really played that one a whole lot. So you're making me want to.
It's a good one.
Pull it out,
if only for the music. Like honestly, you can find the soundtrack on YouTube, and I'll play it every once in a while.
Yeah.
It takes me right back there.
No, it's really good, but it might kind of hinted to it too. Is just the gameplay is a little stiff in the sense that the movements and attacks are not as smooth as you think they should be going through. Kind of reminds me of like Keith Courage on the TurboGrafx.
A little bit,
same type of clunkiness with attacking, but.
All right, well, that's a good start. That's a way to get the ball rolling. So, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like how Mike started. There's so many games. I mean, and I think even someone in the chat said, you played for 50 years. Like, what do you like? How do you get it down to 5? Like, there's a lot. And my first game playing was Burger Time on the Intellivision, which again, love the game, but I wanted to hit on just some key ones. And my pick, because we haven't been able to do this in a while, and this is purely a joke. This does not count in my 5, guys. Bubsy!
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since we've done that.
I would have brought my Bubsy controller if I knew you were going to do that.
But no, so I think the first one I'll grab here, because again, these are in no order whatsoever. In my top, like I didn't rank them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The first one I'm going to show though is a game I just really loved on the Nintendo, and that was the Guardian Legend. And with that, that's when I had the opportunity to actually find this complete in box for a really good price. I couldn't pass it up because in my collecting, I don't really care when it comes to the cardboard box games if I have it complete. But like that was one because it held a place for me, and because again, I just remember nights, at friend's house, staying overnight, and we'd try to work on it, pass the controller back and forth playing. And again, it's just such a great combination of, kind of a sci-fi shmup and, the top down like Blaster Master maze going through, because you're pretty much a robot that can transform into a ship, and you're going to,
okay.
It's a real.
I have not played it much, so
yeah.
But
ultimately, this huge world is coming toward Earth, and you're there to go try to find out what's going on, and save the Earth. So and find out like the mysteries on this rogue planet coming toward Earth. And actually, I think it says on the box, Naju was the planet. Now I will say the box art for the actual Japanese release is a lot cooler than this one, but
that's quite often the case. Either they're really cartoony or they're just epic.
But I really love it. And again, I don't know, like there's kind of some screenshots of it if the camera can focus. It's just really good game. And I believe it's made by Compile. So like it's they were really well known, especially in Japan, for a lot of their shmup games. And that was just a unique blend that was just so much fun to sit and play. And like the password system was absolutely atrocious, which then led to grief as well, because
A lot of NES games had bad.
yeah, I mean, you're staying up till 2-3 a.m. playing this thing, and then you're half asleep trying to write the password down, because we didn't have smartphones or anything to actually, or
And you're like, was that a 0 or an O?
right.
Yeah.
Right. But no, highly recommend it. There's even a cheat code password, I don't remember it off the top, to allow you just even play the shmup levels. So again, great game, and I just had so much fun with it growing up, and again, it's one that kind of has a place there for me.
Oh, interesting. I've never heard of that game. Honestly, that's interesting. I'm going to have to check that out. All right, Dr. Scott.
Kind of like the other gentlemen, mine aren't in any particular order personally, but mine are in just chronological order of essentially when they came out, but also kind of sort of when I encountered them. Because a couple of mine might have encountered like maybe a year or two after they released. So, but the first one was the arcade game Pac-Man from 1980. And the main
Are you
reason,
sure you don't mean the 2600 version?
absolutely not. Well, that's a whole different story entirely. But
You better believe it is.
oh yeah, the main reason how come I chose Pac-Man for the arcade, and everybody knows the game, so I don't have to explain it. And if you don't know the game, welcome to the United States, and welcome to the 21st century.
Welcome
But
to the planet Earth.
yeah, but we're going way back here. So there I am. I'm like, the game came out, and I think I was about 8 years old, and I'm at the mall with my parents, and whatever their agenda was at the mall, whether go to they were shopping for something specific, I don't even know. But they always would park in where Sears was, because my mom used to work at Sears. We come out of there and we're walking by Woolworth, and of course Woolworth had a lunch counter as well, and sometimes they had some arcade games lined up. Not very many, but they're walking down through the mall, and the next thing I knew, they're gone, because I'm mesmerized by this crowd of people around this arcade cabinet. And I go up to it and I'm watching this thing, and I'm just absolutely enthralled. I'm like, and I turn around and they're gone. I'm like, oh no, I'm a lost kid in a mall. And the first thing I'm not even thinking, oh, I'm going to get abducted, I'm going to die, nothing like that. It's just my mom and dad are going to kill me, because they're going to have to look for me. So I feverishly, go down through the mall trying to look for this, look for them. And they happen to stop off at another store, like not even 4 or 5, stores down. And I'm yammering off the mouth, telling them, because I'm nervous, because I thought I was going to die. And I'm telling them about this game. And so I didn't even get to play the game that day. I got to play it maybe a couple of weeks later, because they actually had one in Aladdin's Castle, the arcade. So my best friend, his mom would take us there, and we would have a roll of quarters and show up. And I think I used an entire roll of quarters on Pac-Man. They had a couple machines there, but I wasn't very good at it. But what a fantastic game! One of the very first Maze games that I can even recall. It may even be the first.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's my story on Pac-Man, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, it brings to mind what Mike was talking about with Space Invaders. Space Invaders, up until that point, was the best and most played arcade game, as far as I can remember.
Until Pac-Man came along.
Until Pac-Man came out. And so it definitely changed the arcade and gaming industry a lot as well. So it influenced you as a gamer, but it also influenced the gaming industry quite a lot.
And when I looked it up, it said that not only is Pac-Man still the most successful, which I still don't believe, the most successful arcade game of all time, it still is. And I'm like, is that even possible?
I mean, because there's the problem is as arcades advance, there's so much more variety that none of them are going to become as big as the big thing.
Right.
So like if we were talking about most influential games of all time, Space Invaders and Pac-Man would both have to be on that list. It's just They are.
And
Right.
incidentally, Space Invaders is the first game I ever played as well. So,
Cool.
Me
yeah.
too. Arcade game
Yeah,
for
arcade
sure.
game.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
All right. Well,
I bet Brian's first game was Bubsy.
That very copy.
That's right.
and for those of you who are either new or don't recall, Bubsy has kind of been a running joke and is our unofficial mascot to the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast, and I believe that's because of Brian as well. So I think it's his fault.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, right.
I mean, so
It
much
was because
so.
in the first episode we were making fun of Bubsy as being like Atari's new mascot.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And Brian, we've had, it's been a running joke for so long that Brian actually made me a Genesis Bubsy 6-button controller. I have. It's a unique, one of a kind. I don't think you've ever made any other than that one, right?
No, just that one.
Yeah. So I'm very pleased to have that. It's a great controller, by the way. That's my BD Retro Mods. Plug for the
day.
podcast.
I was gonna say that's almost become the new running joke every
You
week
have
on
to. You have to. If you're a gamer.
I plug BD Retro Mods at least once a month to somebody, and so it's just
Yeah.
what hey, he makes a quality product and a variety too, so that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, when Mike put us to task with this list, I had to think about. These are not my favorite games by any stretch of the magic. They are not. And but I had to think about what games influenced me to keep playing games that I may play today. And some of which I actually still play, some I do not. I can't stand this next one I'm going to tell you about. And I had mentioned that at the beginning that my games were not in any particular order, but if I had to list 1 to 5, this next one would be the 5th one.
Okay.
And don't laugh. This is the Super Nintendo Madden 95.
That's a game that influenced you. Okay.
And you now, as my Mr. Baseman said, he goes, my first game was Marbles, not Marble Madness, but the actual marbles. So, the reason why this has influenced me was it wasn't the first sports video game that I had ever played anyone head to head or played with somebody. However, it was the first one that had actual real sports teams. They were actually not, if my memory serves, Madden 95 actually had the names of actual NFL teams. And I can't play it now, but back then it almost gave you like a 3D view compared to the 2D view that I had been accustomed to in the other sports games that I had played.
Kind of an orthographic.
Yeah.
View. I
more
feel
of a
the
3D.
exact same. I feel the exact same way of like the NHL 93, 94 games. That was like when they first started becoming the modern sports games.
And I played from then on, even to this day, I'm almost the first one in line to get the new Madden. And I don't know why I have the last probably 5-6 years, because they've just changed the names and kept the software's no different. It doesn't seem like, but it was just so much fun to play head to head and to be able to pick the plays and just to do that. And then of course, Madden has changed so much over the years. There are, you have practice mode, you can create your own plays. There's coaching modes. There's just all these different things that are in the newer versions of the Maddens. But that was the one that got it started. And the sounds were horrible. The graphics are horrible. The gameplay is horrible. But we loved it. We loved it. And subsequent games made the older games obsolete and less attractive to play, and we just didn't do it any longer. And so I told you that this would be kind of a weird list, and I am the old guy on the
well,
panel
at your
here.
age, I'm surprised your number 5 wasn't Tiddlywinks.
How'd you know what?
Mousetrap.
Next
That's
one
number 1. Wait.
Yes. Okay. So that's mine. That's my number. What I would say number 5.
Okay. For moving on to my number 4, this is a retro computer game, a PC game. So Skyrim's the big thing now, but a complete eye opener to me, and a world that I was just like, holy crap! How can I just keep walking in one direction and never stop? Was Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall. I played this to death. Now, in fairness, it's a completely open world. You can walk from city to city, or you can fast travel. You can do whatever you want. You can find random dungeons, and they're randomly generated. And in fact, you really don't want to do that until you have some kind of levitation spell, because they were randomly generated. Sometimes they didn't have a way to get out unless you could levitate, which is not true. I played Daggerfall to absolutely no end. But it is comparatively a pretty empty world. But just the fact that it was, and you can go to a town, you can just take out your sword and start killing people, and the guards will come after you. You kill the guards, you take their stuff, you get better equipment, and then you kill more guards, and then you go to another town, and
Grand Theft Daggerfall.
Because in that region, like, there are different kind of countries and stuff, or nations. The guards just automatically come after you, but then you go to a different region, you're fine. And based on what race you picked, like which region you're from, people might be cold to you in another region because they don't like people from your region. There is a quest to do, and I never did it, ever. In fact, one of the bad things about Daggerfall is that if you do not accomplish a certain thing within like a couple weeks of exiting that first dungeon, you will not be able to beat the game. You have to meet somebody at an inn. And so I've never beaten the game, but I bought a boat, I bought a house, I wandered around and just did whatever I wanted to do. And I went into dungeons and killed things. You could you could get bitten by a werewolf, and then you get lycanthropy, and you turn into a werewolf at night.
That's fun.
You could become a vampire. You could just so much. This would be much higher on my list if it wasn't so empty a world. This is Skyrim, but in when did it come out? 96. This is Skyrim back in 96. So it's a fairly empty world. There's no 3D sprites. They're kind of these flat characters, and then they just angle towards you, right? So they always look like a board that's looking towards you. But it completely expanded my mind. I was like, I did not know that this kind of open world could exist. And in a video game, sometimes it's fun, Jeremiah. If you've ever played GTA or any of the Grand Theft Auto games, it's kind of fun sometimes.
Yeah, I never played any of the games before Morrowind, so that's really interesting.
All right.
Yeah, and I did love Morrowind as well.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, I have never played Skyrim. I have it. I've never played it yet.
All right, Brian, you're up. Kip.
Yeah. So my next one, and again, I'm showing kind of some of this at the beginning because it leads up to my next one. So, and I think someone mentioned it in chat, just, one of the things was, with the Nintendo was originally, with Nintendo Power, everyone got a copy of Dragon Warrior, which was Dragon Quest, and got through. I mean, it was good. It was different, because not knowing, because you didn't. It was just a different style of a game for a console, and then of course you had Dragon Warrior 2 that really like such an improvement over that first game. It was just great game as well. But man, when you got that Sega Genesis, and you came across this was, really putting that genre over the top at that point, because like I said, prior to that, I played Dragon Warrior. I played Dragon Warrior 2, got slightly played Dragon Warrior 3. Because the problem is I wanted these games, but it just didn't fit because, growing up, you only had like those 2-3 periods of the year you can buy a game, right? And these ones were technically like $10-15 more expensive than the standard Nintendo games at the time.
Yeah.
So these would be rentals, and then you get disappointed when you got the rental back again and your game save was deleted. But but like but yeah, but no, Phantasy Star 2 was just so much of an improvement because Dragon Warrior games, you didn't see your actual characters fighting, where in this you saw the backs of your characters standing there and attacking the other enemies. And one of the other things that was great about this is, as it says on the box, a whole whopping 6 meg memory, but it also included a 110-page hint book because we didn't have the internet to be able to go on and try to figure out what are we supposed to do now. So like part of the thing with like Dragon Warriors and stuff was like you're literally just running around hoping you're going to the right place, and then all of a sudden you get your face kicked in because you went to the wrong zone too soon, but
funny,
but
Daggerfall was kind of like that too.
Yeah, so but again, I think this was such a good step. And then it had that sci-fi element blended in with the fantasy, which was, I think, really cool. Had really good soundtrack at its time. And for me, it was great because when I was buying a game, it was good to have one that lasted a long time. And I mean, you could get a very long time out of this game, before from beginning to end.
Well, let me ask you a question. I wanted to ask Brian a quick question.
Yeah.
Had you played Phantasy Star for the Master System prior to Phantasy Star 2?
No. So, because the funny part is at that point, I didn't even know a Master System existed. Like my first step was the Genesis. Like it wasn't until later on in life, I'm like, oh, Sega had a system before the Genesis. And,
I didn't know that until later either.
Yeah. So, but I did go back and play it. Now, what is your main party? Oh man. Well, I'm trying to remember because for 2, I don't remember all the characters' names, but because obviously the main starting character, the female doing the claws attacks, and the one with, like I said, I'm terrible with the names on the characters.
It's so influential to Brian that he forgets all the character names.
Well, I'm just terrible with. I mean, yeah, I'm terrible with that stuff. But like I said, it's just I love this a lot. And with the series, it always, like Phantasy Star 3, I would say wasn't as good, but Phantasy Star 4 was top notch. But I mean, if you didn't have this one taking that initial leap, I mean.
Is that your original copy?
Yes, this is my original copy. So
going way back, I was about to comment on something that you just said, but it's now been a while back. But I was going to say, it's funny how much that era of games in particular, kind of the late 80s and up to the mid 90s, how much the soundtrack made a difference.
Yes.
Of even if it was a game that was kind of but if that soundtrack was killer, you would just sit and play it and play it and play it because it really set that tone.
Well, that's the same way with some movies too, but I think for games even more so. And the cover art, even the cover art. I look at all the Atari games that we bought, and we were like, "Yeah, what a great!" Oh, that's not very good. So,
no, the boomerang attack.
I don't even know her rings.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a good attack to be able to hit all the enemies at once for sure.
All right, Dr. Scott, number 4.
This one may be obscure to most people, but it was actually pretty big back in the day. I used to play it on the Commodore 64, and it's called Beachhead 2: The Dictator Strikes Back. And it's a shoot 'em up game that was actually in 4 different stages, if you will. And you can actually, as I recall, because it's been a long time since I've played it, I think you can play each stage individually. You don't have to play them in succession. And there was you could play either one player or two player. And I'm actually reading off my notes here because what I remember most is at the very end, the final stage, you could play against the dictator. And oddly enough, you're in this, I don't know, it was like a cavern where there was like a water below, and you're on these two piers, and you would throw knives at each other, and you had to hit the dictator X amount of times. He had to hit you X amount of times. And the sound effects were just hilarious, especially if you fell in the water. And my best friend and I, we would play this thing until the wee hours of the morning. And there would be my mom, all right, you guys have to keep it down, because, here we are, a couple 11-year-old idiots just, having fun playing a stupid game on the Commodore. And then, it could be even, 10 years later, it's like, hey, dude, let's get out the Commodore and play Beachhead 2. It was such a fun game. It wasn't a war game by any means, but there were soldiers and there was a little shooting and stuff like that. You would rescue different you'd rescue prisoners. It was a fun little game, a little diversion. But the thing was, as I recall, I remember it being kind of a big deal on the Commodore 64 back then. But try finding a copy of it today. Not easy. So, but that's my story from 1985. I absolutely loved that game. There were plenty of others on the Commodore, but I think that was the one that influenced me most, and I kept playing that one over and over and over again.
So that was go ahead.
I've only played the original Beachhead, the homebrew port on the Intellivision. It's okay.
Yeah. The first one, he's like, "What about the first one?" So I got hold of it, and yeah, it wasn't that great.
So this was our first pre-PC computer game in the list. Very interesting.
Really? Because I said Daggerfall.
I was going to say
Daggerfalls. I didn't know
Daggerfalls
PC. I didn't hear what system.
I
was
said
that for.
it's a PC game, but that's okay.
I said pre-PC game.
Oh, pre-PC game. I didn't hear you say pre.
I was correct.
Okay.
I thought it was
Good for
wrong
you,
once,
Phil.
but I was mistaken.
Ba-dum.
Anyway,
All right, Phil, number 4.
I'm going to mention a PC game for mine. This was one of the first games that I literally had to upgrade my PC. And I didn't, what'd he say?
Nothing.
Just keep going, Phil. Just keep going,
Okay.
Phil.
Okay. I had to upgrade the PC. Not only that, this was one of the first games I ever had to have a dedicated video card, because prior to that, all the games I'd ever played on a PC would use the internal video RAM
Card. Yeah.
And so it is Quake 2.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay. This was there were other, like Doom was one of the first, I guess, first person shooters, whatever, but I never really played that. I didn't, by the time I started getting into it, it's like Quake 2 was the one that I really got exposed to.
So I was
first.
big into Quake 1.
Yeah, and it's good too. But obviously since then I've graduated to how many first person shooters are out there now? I mean, there's tons of them, right? So but that one has a special place in my heart. I played it a bunch in LAN parties at the house with friends and with the boys. Down in, it wasn't the Bliss Cave back then, but I guess it would be considered a Bliss Cave, but I wasn't.
It was
known
just
as
the
Retro
Phil
Bliss.
Cave back then.
It was, yeah. So
the
and I
Poe's going to
remember-
have a party
ahead.
with that phrase.
okay, don't do it, don't do it. So it, and I still play it. I have it on Steam. Not Steam. I'm sorry. Is it on the GOG platform? Maybe.
I don't know.
I think it's on the GOG platform, but I still have it and I still play it from time to time. And so it started even though it's not my favorite first person shooter, it was the one that most influenced me to try others and graduate to newer and better first person shooters. And so it for me, that was one that influenced me greatly.
So this one here, I almost put on my list. I remember when my dad brought Wolfenstein 3D home, and that's the one that sold me on first-person shooters. Way back, even before Doom, I played so much Wolfenstein 3D. But Quake 2 is like I didn't play much of Quake 2. I played Quake extensively, dial up with friends, and I played a lot of Duke Nukem 3D before that. But
And the difference in I
yeah.
mean, I can see the difference in it, what it looked like without a dedicated video card and what it looked like with. And for me, that was big. You know, I'm older
Yeah.
than you guys. Back in it was, I think it came out in '97. I don't know how old you guys were in '97, but I was an adult with kids. So, you know,
I
was not.
I was
No.
I was the
You were
age
the
of
kid.
I was the age of the teenagers that picked on your kids.
Yeah, probably so. All
All
right, but anyway, it was very influential for me. All right, so that was
Okay.
my number 2.
So my number 3 is another old PC game, and it introduced me to my favorite PC genre. Number 2 favorite PC genre would probably be real-time strategy, but Civilization 2 introduced me to turn-based strategy games. And it was like, you are the leader of this nation. You consider yourself an emperor or a king or whatever, and you compete in a randomly generated world against randomly generated opponents that are also running their own nations throughout time. You start in the Stone Age, you advance to the ancient world, the Bronze Age, Iron Age, Industrial Age, etc., etc. You research. You've got research trees. I used to have a folder full of MIDI files. If anybody remembers MIDI files for music.
Yeah.
And I would just sit in our computer room, because back in that day you had a room just for the computer, and play that list of MIDI files while playing Civilization 2. It was, man. And then, so it's not my favorite Civilization game, but Civilization 3, I think, is 10 times better. But there is a lot to be said for what Civ 2 brought to that genre. I liked when you checked with your advisors, like the entertainment guy was dressed like Elvis. And they were all, it was very campy in what really is this very serious game. It also led me to the Panzer General games, which I love. I used to, playing Panzer General, I would go to college and I wouldn't be paying attention in class. I'd be planning my assault and marking beaches and stuff like that.
That's great.
But turn-based strategy has ever since been a huge favorite of mine, and Civilization 2 is a massive part of that.
You mentioned that in a previous podcast as well, so it really has had to have an influence on your gaming
for sure
choices.
And just like that feeling of power, and you choose your government type too. You could be fascist, you could be communist, you could be anarchist, and there's benefits and there's pros and cons to all these different governments too. Like if you're a democracy and you're at war for too long, you're going to really suffer on the home front. So honestly, for a lot of these, because you play Civilization 2, if you play expansionist like I do and you're attacking your friends and all that, you want to be like a fascist government where people don't get as upset if you're at war all the time.
Interesting. All right, Brian, what was your third choice?
Yeah, so my next one, which I realized I was originally going to go in order of like the release of systems, but that's okay. So so yeah, my next one, because this one was big for me because I ended up getting it for Christmas one year and just fell in love with the whole series, and that is Mega Man 2, and
Yes.
which I still think is probably the best out of the original 6 on the Nintendo.
I
But
think it's between that and 3.
right.
Yeah.
Because I have the other ones. I mean, absolutely
Yeah.
horrible box art for the original here, but because like I don't, yeah, but nonetheless, I mean, it's such a good series, and like at the time when you think about a lot of the platformers, Mega Man was probably one of the first that gave you that. So for me, because again, this is talking about what influenced us, is this: I didn't play the first one first. This was the first one I ended up getting, and like I just thought it was so great to be able to kind of have that choose your own adventure where I can play these in whatever order I want to go. And you didn't really have that as much in those in that time period. This was kind of one of those first games that let you choose, like, what level do you want to play first? You don't have to start at 1-1 to get to 8-1, and it was just cool. And the whole premise being this robot that has to go take out the other evil robots and the doctor that created them, and I fell in love with it. I mean, the whole concept I thought was cool. The platforming was some of the best platforming on the console. Capcom always known to push the Nintendo to its limits when it came to the colors and the graphics of their games.
Capcom really was kind of a seal of quality in itself.
Yes. I mean, I fell in love with it. And again, I played the first one. Yeah, well, the first one I thought was way harder than it needed to be, and I think part of that was because you didn't have password feature, where at least this one gave you password feature to be able to continue where you left off.
And like the Mega Man series of games were the type of games that I used to refer to, like they taught kids how to swear. And I remember introducing my son to Mega Man 2 back in the day. It was one of the Mega Mans, not necessarily Mega Man 2. But I remember sitting in the other room and he's playing Mega Man 2 next door and just hearing, I pressed jump. Come on.
Right.
And I'm just waiting to hear that controller hit the wall.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, you had the third one, which the third one was good, but I thought this one was too easy. So, like, you had the first one that was very hard. And again, the fact that you had to sit there and never turn your console off until you tried to get through it. This one I think was the perfect blend of everything. And then like this one, which was great, it had the slide feature, but like when I rented this one originally, I beat it in like one sitting, where I'm like, maybe it's just because I played this one so freaking much that, I mean, this one was so much easier to me. But again, great series. And I mean, again, it had some flops. Every franchise that has a long running thing has some flops. But Mega Man 2, though, for me is where it's at. Like, that was the defining for me for that genre. So
yeah, they were always rentals in my home. I didn't own them until much later. And man, it was like every consecutive weekend you go and you rent the same game because they were just that good.
Yep.
All right, Scott, you're up.
The NES era was an era that I totally missed out on, because that was, I'm getting some of those games now, but it was just one of those voids video game wise where I was into other things at the time. I was into, band and being a geek and, girls. So I was growing up, so I wasn't a kid anymore. And
I was into being a geek and girls. Those usually don't go together, man.
They didn't. That's how come I went from geek to girls.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a reformed nerd. But anyway, but later on, I ended up there were two consoles that came out, and at the same time, roughly the same time, around the same time, and that was the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. And I hadn't. Brian keeps disappearing. He's like
He does.
He's like Doug Henning. But
He's like Austin Matthews.
David Copperfield here. But so my then girlfriend from high school, her parents, we were at a hotel someplace because her aunt and uncle, and they were all there, and they had her cousin brought a Sega Genesis, and it was the first time I had ever seen Altered Beast, and I was like, wow, what an awesome game. And I almost talked about Altered Beast and the other what was the other one? Eluding me right now. Golden Axe, because but the console that actually made me say, wow, I really have to go out and buy one of these consoles, the game that made me really do that, it wasn't those per se, even though those did do that, it was this game right here. It was Batman Returns. I ran right out and I grabbed the Super Nintendo just because of this game, and this is my original copy. And I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of that. I mean, I do like the movie, but I like the first one, of course, a lot better. But this, you know, with all the scenes and stuff that you could, you know, have in the game,
it was a very visually impressive game for the time. For sure.
And also the music, a lot of that mirrored a lot of the Danny Elfman soundtrack as well. And I remember my buddy Dave, he would come over to my apartment and he was just like, what are you playing? And then he went out and he bought, I mean, I think that he only owned 2 games and this was one of them. So sometimes I would go to his house and I would play this game. You know, what a great beat 'em up. I mean, if you've never played, probably one of the, up until the Arkham series, probably one of the best Batman games ever made for any console until the Arkham series came out. And this is the reason how come I actually bought my Super Nintendo. And of all the consoles I have, I mean, that's the first, one of the first ones I ever bought. I think it is the first one. It could be argued if it was the Genesis or not, but with my own money. And I still have that very console sitting right over there underneath that pink gorilla. Wow. So, but they'll pry it out of my cold dead hands.
I love this comment. It's like, there may only be one person in the world who bought a Super Nintendo for Batman Returns, and then after you tell your story, it says, okay, 2 people.
You know what though? That was because I'm back. Apparently, StreamYard crashed my whole computer because they didn't like my response to the Mega Man games. Apparently, so
that's what you get for disagreeing with Jeremiah.
I guess. Jeez, but no, Batman Returns was such a good game on the Super Nintendo. The music, the graphics, the gameplay, everything was top notch on it. I mean, that's a real good pick. I even really like the Batman and Robin game, the animated series one, Adventures of Batman and Robin on the SNES. That was another really well done one by Konami.
Well, such a geek that, you know, not only this thing never comes out to see the light of day, the game is still in here. And the really fun thing is, I used to take a razor blade and I would like cut the plastic and keep the plastic on the box. The plastic is still on this box. Mm-hmm. And so it's just,
I've got a couple like that, but they weren't because I was gentle as a kid. It's because I bought them that way.
Oh, none of my Atari games have their original boxes. They're just like,
they're so old, they just kind of fall apart.
Yeah, Jeremiah, the Lynx version. Yeah, I mean, I like when I finally got a Lynx, which was not when it first came out. It was many, many years later. That was like one of the first games I bought for it because like between that and Ninja Gaiden, I was like, I can't wait to play these on the Lynx. And I'm like, oh my God. I was just so utterly disappointed with Batman Returns.
All right, Phil.
Okay.
Number 3.
We did a show of our top 10 favorite, maybe I think it was our top 5 favorite Atari 2600 games. We had John from Gen X Grown Up on the show. And this game was on my list. It was number 1 on my list of officially released games. It is not on my list because it's my favorite game. It's not on my list because it's in my top 5 favorite games of all time. It is on my list because it has influenced me to be enough to be on the top 5 of that list, and it is Space Invaders for the Atari 2600, and I'll tell you why. Up until it came out, I had a 2600. The titles were hit and miss with the 2600 for sure.
Oh yeah.
But then when Space Invaders came out, and that was highly anticipated, and
it was the first system seller.
Yeah. And what it did for me was it set a bar for subsequent ports. If they were going to be ported to the 2600, you knew they weren't going to be exactly alike, but you wanted the gameplay and to be as close as possible, right? And so to me it set a bar. And so I will say that I had been disappointed more times than not for subsequent ports after that. But Space Invaders, what it has done, it has influenced me even to this day, especially when it comes to the 2600. And the reason being is because I love champ games. I love games like Juno First.
Oh,
I love certain video game ports that have been ported specifically to the 2600. And can I play these games on other systems with better graphics and even maybe slightly better gameplay? Sure. But for me, nostalgia somewhat plays a part here because it takes me back, and when I put in Scramble, or I put in Gorf Arcade, or I play Juno First or something like that, it makes me think, what if I would have gotten this game when I was that 13-year-old kid living in Madisonville, Cincinnati, right? And I'm like, I would have never, I wouldn't even come down to eat. I'd probably only weigh $150 if I was lucky by now, if that were the case. But I just absolutely believe that the Space Invaders set the bar to the point where it influenced me enough that I, even to this day, I spend money on video game ports for the 2600 and for other systems, by the way. But my first love for that is for the 2600. That has influenced me. It has influenced me a lot.
Certainly influences your buying.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what one of the criteria that I had set, how it influences me now. And so, I mean, I've spent a dollar or two on video game ports for the 2600.
$1 or 20,000. Yeah.
Almost as much as I did controllers from BD Retro Mods.
Yeah, right.
Oh, did I accidentally plug you again? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
There's a whole bunch of plugging tonight between the chat and everything else. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. I'm glad everyone enjoys it. But one thing I wanted to say though with the Space Invaders, that, and maybe someone in chat knows, and I'm sure I could Google it. Like what I was really shocked on is that like we never got a port to the NES, even though they had one for the Famicom. We never got it over here, and it's surprising because, again, not 100% perfect, but when you think about the progression of ports, I mean, again, we all here love the 2600 version of Space Invaders. Like, again, that's one I still go back to and
but
play.
It is very different from
it's very different from
the arcade.
Just like Burger Time on Intellivision, different from the arcade. I
have the Space Invaders for the Super Famicom, and that's a great port.
Yeah.
Well, I have to address Radio King. It is not Pac-Man time, and it's definitely not Atari 2600 Pac-Man time, and it will never be.
But how about Hall and Oates?
Oh,
That's just Hall and Oates now.
I love.
They're not together anymore.
I had the cassettes.
I still have
Radio King disagrees, but we're at 55 minutes and we still have 2 to go each. So
yeah,
let's move on. My number 2, the last computer game on my list, I kind of had 3 computer games in the middle here, is Fallout. The original Fallout, but it's Fallout 1, Fallout 2, all the way up to Fallout 4. I've never played 76, but and so the reason is again, combat in the original Fallout games is turn-based. And you have a certain amount of actions that you can do. You can move and then you could shoot and all that. But you play in a post-apocalyptic world. If we're talking about the original Fallout, and the water purification or regeneration or whatever, something to do with your water in your vault is malfunctioning and you need to leave the vault and go get parts. And there is an entire, whereas Daggerfall gave you this big, massive open world, Fallout is a big, massive world and it's full. And there are, well, hey, yeah, I mean, some people need to know, Jeremiah. But I mean, some people definitely need to know because they went from Fallout 4 to Fallout 76. It was wrong. Okay. But and you meet all these different types of people. There are ghouls. There are people who have been transformed from the radiation. It's a wasteland. There's the Brotherhood of Steel, and it just created this really in-depth world. And you could do pretty much whatever you wanted. And that was accentuated in Fallout 2, where I recall, like, I've beaten Fallout 1. I've never beaten Fallout 2. There is an end game. But in Fallout 2, I was just enamored with you can literally do anything. I went to this farm and the farmer has 2 kids, a really stupid boy, like they're teenage kids, a really stupid boy and a girl. And you can get caught in relations with them. And then there's a shotgun wedding and you have to marry either of them. This is in 1998. I think the second one came out. Like either of them. So, and then you can go to the big city and you can sell them into prostitution and pornography and whatever. Or you could just stop in the middle of nowhere, shoot them in the head, and they take their stuff. Again, it was just but there was a morality scale too. And if your reputation was too bad, you would get stopped in the middle of nowhere by bounty hunters. They would be people coming after you. Which again is a level up from what Daggerfall was. Like you go into a city and you see a guard, he attacks you because he knows that you're a bad guy. But now they're actively hunting you. And the game was steeped in lore, and they have built such a great history of that entire world and so much character that was the first time that I felt absolutely completely immersed in a world. And I love that world to this day.
Very influential, sounds like.
Yeah.
It was.
All right. Brian.
Yeah, so my next one for me was another one on the Sega Genesis, and that is Castle of Illusion.
Okay.
Starring McMouse, which is kind of
weird.
It's a good
game.
But it's
a good game, though.
It's a very good game. And you know, again, at around that period of time, like 89, 90, I mean, Sega was killing it. I mean, like they had one good game after another, and it was one different genre after another. Because initially, at least for me, that can be debatable. Like, don't get me wrong, going back and playing Master System, it's also a very underappreciated system. But the Genesis was just
Don't take him
awesome.
too seriously. He thinks Pitfall is better than Super
Yeah.
Mario Brothers. So.
But I mean, the Genesis was just on fire. I mean, they were bringing out hit after hit after hit, and then, you know, prior to this game, you know, it was pretty much Capcom who had all the Disney games, and those were all really good, you know, on the NES, like all their different ones. But there's just something to be said about this one, like just the music, the gameplay style, the boss fights, the level design, you know, everything with it. What I thought was just great. I mean, and it's a game that I still enjoy going back to and playing, and you know, the other games by Sega, you know, that they created that was, you know, quote unquote sequels to this were all good. You know, you had, you know, Quackshot, which wasn't like a true sequel. You had World of Illusion. You know, there was just, again, this period of time, Sega was just so good, and it was just
that period of time. Licensed games were good too.
Yes,
and then it hit a point somewhere in the late '90s where they just sucked.
Yeah. But no, that was another one, because again, I remember just many hours with that game. So
cool.
All right. So Scott, what is your next most influential game?
I had a hard time with this one because I had two that were right there, and I said, okay, I got to cut one out because at that time, when I had both of these games, Mickey Mouse is fun. I had the N64 and I had the PlayStation 1, and I got them roughly right around the same time. And my son was born in 99, and I decided I was going to play a couple games while I was on paternity leave. And I do not recall which game I played first. Was it GoldenEye or was it Metal Gear Solid? Even though one came out, you know, before the other. Yep. But those were it can be debated which one is the very first game that I ever went from beginning to end and actually solved. So, but the game that I chose for this that was actually more influential was Metal Gear Solid, because I had never really experienced a game until this one because of all the stealth. And I'm not really big into stealth, but some games I can actually tolerate it. And this game, you know, you'd have that alert go off, and you know, you're hiding bodies, you're trying to hide. I never had a game really get my blood pumping like Metal Gear Solid did. It had a really fascinating story. And then just, you know, the way you would save the game, and then you would, you know, end up, you know, talking to Mei Ling and talking to some of your contacts, like the Colonel or General, whichever he was. I think he was a Colonel.
And McDonald Miller.
But it was just one of those games that I think that there are a lot of people out there who are completely and utterly fascinated by, especially with when you get toward the end of the game and the game is starting to mess with you, and you have to actually unplug your controller and plug it into the other port.
Yeah.
And
Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, Psycho Mantis. Some of the crazy stuff that you would have to do in the game, and a lot of the, you know, the sub bosses, and of course the main boss. I must have spent two or 3 hours trying to kill the last boss. And there's my wife.
So what you're saying is you weren't good at the game.
No, oh man, that last boss, so I said, that's it, I'm going to bed. And my ex-wife, she was just like, come on, just go to bed. And I did. The very next morning I get up, I put it in, you know, 2 tries, got him. But that game was long, you know, 2 discs back in the day. That was quite a game. So, but anyway, I mean, I could talk about that one all night. So we'll flip it up to Phil. So,
all righty.
Okay. So my number 4 was another Super Nintendo game. Prior to that, the newest console that I had was a Sega Master System. And there was a platform game on the Master System called Alex Kidd and Miracle World. and I had played it, and I liked it. It was good, but it wasn't until I had kids and I got the Super Nintendo and I bought this game and played it with them that I really, I guess, developed a love for the platform game, because in this particular version there were so many um there were how could I say it, I had written it down because I knew I would forget, um like surprises in the game, like you there would be like secret items and different ways to do things and to get, you might climb something. I didn't have a regular Nintendo, so I went from a Master System to a Super Nintendo. So I know that um, um, NES Mario World was really the first one to
Mario
show a lot of those.
Brothers.
But for me, the Super Nintendo version of Super Mario World exposed that to that type of quality
A lot of
game.
people consider that to
Yep.
be the best Mario game.
Yeah,
It's
and
my favorite
I
out
agree.
of the 2D
I'd say
ones.
Mario 3 is my favorite, but Mario World is a very close second.
And
Yeah.
am I good at a lot of platform games? I'm really not, but I just enjoy the exploration of it all, and just trying. And in that particular game, you started off with a certain number of lives, but if you went to a certain level over and over and over and over again, you could add as many lives as you wanted to, so that you would never ever, you could beat the game. And I've never actually beaten that game. I know that Andrew and Justin have on multiple occasions, but I still enjoyed playing with them, and it gave me a love for that genre. And I think it was probably that platformer that gave me the love for that genre. So that's why I picked that one.
Copper Mutant, you're referring to Super Mario Land. That was the Game Boy version. All right, my number one. Scott, you scooped me.
Did I?
Metal Gear Solid. I know Jeremiah Timus is going to love this one. He says he hates Metal Gear Solid. It was the first time. So my brother and I, we had a Nintendo 64, and we both decided that we were going to pool our money together and buy a PlayStation 1, because I wanted Metal Gear Solid and he wanted Final Fantasy 7. Neither of us were disappointed. Metal Gear Solid was the first time I ever felt like I was playing in a movie.
Yeah.
It was, again, if we're talking about immersion, whereas Fallout, the world immersed me in the original Fallout games, I felt like I was Solid Snake. I felt like I knew those characters in the game. And yes, if you are crawling through the vent and you go back and you go and you look and you keep looking at Meryl in her cell, eventually she's just in her underwear. I remember that. And just the breaking the third wall, usually in the best of ways. If you want Meryl's number to get her on the codec, you have to look on the case. Heaven help you if you threw that case away or you borrowed it from your friend and you didn't have the case. It's the Psycho Mantis thing. He reads your save data.
Yep.
He knows if you've been cautious or if you've been reckless. He knows he'll make comments based on other Konami games that you've been playing. You put your controller on the ground and he rumbles it, and that's his psychic power. And then in order to beat him, you plug your controller into the second controller, and then he can't read your thoughts. Just absolutely brilliant game. My favorite of the Metal Gear series is Metal Gear Solid 3. I think that is just
Everybody
ultimate
says
one.
that. And Mike, I got to be honest with you. I've only played it the very beginning. I still have not yet played it. And shame on me for not, because right now my favorite is 4.
So 4, my problem with 4, it's like 20 minutes of playing and then an hour of
Yeah.
watching a movie and then 20 minutes of playing. I don't like that. The balance of gameplay is much better in the earlier games. And part 2, I love Metal Gear Solid 2, but playing as Raiden is just no fun for me.
It does
I don't
take
like
it
Raiden
does take you out of it a little bit.
a little bit. But the one that introduced me to all, and the one that really was the first time I ever felt like I was playing in a movie, Metal Gear Solid.
All right.
Amen.
All right, Brian.
And Poe
I'm
did
sorry,
things
1 second.
during the Psycho Mantis fight.
Yeah. That boy, you need to go to bed, take your Ritalin. Okay.
Oh boy. Yeah, so like I said, I didn't do mine in any particular order. So like I said, my last one to show, because like I said, it was probably, again, there's multiple favorites in this series, but this is probably the one that really got me hooked on it, and that's Final Fantasy 2, which is technically Final Fantasy 4. So
My favorite is Final Fantasy 6, but that one, man, we played that for ages.
right. I mean, it's just, this is the one that got me hooked. And again, I liked Final Fantasy 3/6, but again, this was the one like I got completely through. It was a Christmas gift because I got this in Donkey Kong Country, both at Christmas time, which that's another really good game.
Oh yeah.
But again, just the storyline was just so good. I mean, like, you know, you start out, you know, you and again, I'm terrible.
You're
with
one of the
name-
bad
character
guys
names.
at the start.
And like you're literally one of the bad guys, and you don't really know it. Like it's like as you progress through, you realize, oh crap, I've been duped this whole time, and then you know, and then you go from a dark knight to a paladin, and then you go to the moon, and you come back. I mean, it's just like this, the whole storyline, like just again using the limits of the console. Like they did such a good job telling that story and just having like not cut scenes, but just the in-game scenes that really got you hooked into it. And
The one thing that I really, really wish, now I understand, especially back then, video games are made for kids, and Final Fantasy 2 was made for kids. But the one thing, even at the time playing it, that I wish is there are characters that make sacrifices during the game
yes,
and that die in the game, and almost all of them at the end come back. And it's like, no, it loses all its punch when you do that. Like those two that do the stone thing, and the guy that jumps into the bomb. I just wish, it had the guts to stick to that, and then I think that would have been so much more impactful and would probably even rival Final Fantasy 6 for me.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, like again, playing this because trying to think what year this came out. You know, I believe it was like 91. So, you know, yeah, being like 12 years old, I think playing it at the time, and it was just like, yeah, I mean, just like you said, those sacrifices, like when all
If you're
of a sudden,
complaining about spoilers, you're a little late to the game. I have zero sympathy.
A little bit.
I mean, just whenever you think you're delivering a gift and oh crap, I just committed genocide on the village. You know, when you're thinking about that playing as a kid, you know, it's just like, what did I just do? You know,
See, that's right in my alley. It's not Mickey Mouse.
But I mean, again, it was just again such a good gripping story, and like I said, this was probably my favorite out of a lot of them there. And,
I respect
and again,
that.
And again, 3/6, very well done as well. But there was just something about this one that just I'm just more hooked on that one. And then
I hear you.
obviously 7 because of what it was. I mean, again, to try to go back to
I think 7 is one of the most overrated Final Fantasies of all.
Well, again, when it first came out,
it's significant. It's significant.
It was a significant leap. However, you try to go back and play that original, it's not a good experience, and it's one of those that needs to stay in nostalgia land, not go revisit it because it gives it a whole different take. Now, again, like the remasters and stuff is different. My last thing, 'cause I know we're over time, is just I wish Square would just stick to the roots of the game, because I know like over the years they've really taken it in a different direction.
After Final Fantasy VII, it went a little too emo for me.
Yeah, I mean, like for myself personally, and maybe others like it, and if you do, great. But like, I did not like 15, and I started to play 16, and I just didn't feel like 16 was a Final Fantasy. I mean, because of they turned it from an RPG to now kind of an action game, and that just kind of took it away from me. But
Fair enough.
But nonetheless, on to you, Dr. Scott.
I have never played well, that's not true. I have tried to play Final Fantasy games. They're just not for me, but I totally respect anybody who loves this series just because they have had such a huge influence on the industry itself and on people. So they're not for me. But
I hear you. They take a time investment, especially those old ones.
And I love watching
Grinding.
people play some, RPGs and stuff, but I can't play them myself. So
the great part, so I have 5 younger brothers, and the great part is that you're playing a game and your younger brothers want to play, so you just get them to grind for a couple hours, and then you come back and you get to play the bosses in the story.
That's great. Thanks for playing that for me. Well, it may not necessarily be my number one when it comes to, this list per se, but it kind of sort of is. And the influence that it has put on me, my gaming action Mount Rushmore, and in no particular order, really. And my wife would probably be able, because she knows me better than I do, she would probably be able to tell me, no, these 2 guys are your guys. I love Marcus Phoenix. I absolutely love Solid Snake and Sam Fisher, but probably my number one guy and my number one game, or the series, at least the series itself, it's got to be Halo, man.
Oh, I mean, yeah, Halo's good.
I mean, come on. I mean, I've got a figure of Master Chief here. So.
That thing sold Xboxes.
Yeah, it did.
Again, that's another one that unfortunately is just, why can't they get it right?
Well, I mean,
the latest games.
After Bungie left, 4 was decent. 4 was okay. 5 was barely palatable, and then after that, it's just kind of like what? And now the new one's just going to be a haven for activists. That's all it is, and we won't even go there. But if you've played Halo, if you know anything about these action games, and especially, I went out and bought an Xbox, and then I bought a 360 right on the heels of that Xbox, because I had to play Halo 3. And I actually remember buying it when I was at the university. I actually put it on my account. So I paid for it with my student loan, even my 360. And even up until this, well, not in the last 5 years, but we still used to have LAN parties where we would have 2 huge TVs, 2 consoles hooked up, and we would have 8 people playing. And sometimes, we'd have like maybe 9 or 10 people, and we would be swapping in and out. I mean, this was up until 5 years ago, right before the pandemic. And, since we've moved, as other people have moved, and we don't have a lot of people over that much anymore. Harley would love that. My gosh, my 6-year-old, she'd never be able to go to sleep then. But what a great game for LAN parties and stuff. And if you've never ever played a Halo game and you do like first person shooters, grab a copy of the Master Chief Collection if you have a more modern console other than a 360. And it could be argued whether or not those versions are just as good or not. They've come a long way since Master Chief Collection was released, with all the updates and stuff that they've done. So they've tried to make them a lot closer. But Halo, if you want to say you're playing a movie in Metal Gear Solid, this IP, this series really one-ups that. Gears of War does too, for that matter. But I just that relationship between Cortana and the Chief, especially once you get to the third one. Oh my gosh, I'm in tears playing this game. Just some of the dialogue. So
Wuss.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know anybody who didn't cry when they were playing. Oh shoot, when they were playing Gears of War 2 and 3, especially when Dom found his wife. I mean, if you're not in tears, you don't have a heart. I mean, that is the litmus test on what a video game can do for people. Just playing a game, just because of the story, and it's not long and drawn out like Metal Gear Solid 4 is either. So, but that's my last one. So, Phil, what do you have for us for your last one?
All right, I get to end it on a high note.
Pac-Man 2600.
No, even better than
Which
that.
is literally sitting right there on my shelf. It's right there.
Where are your other 78 copies?
Yeah, right.
They're in the other room.
The ones that never won't go away. You have to watch Scott's video on his Pac-Man video to get that one. All right. I would have to say Family Feud Richard Dawson edition. No, I'm kidding.
That was one of honestly, Family Feud was probably one of the first computer games I ever played at my grandma's house.
We just recently did a episode on real-time strategy games. And real-time strategy games are probably one of, if not my most favorite genre of video game. Excuse me. And the one that influenced me the most wasn't the first one that came out, and not even the first one that I bought. But the one that influenced me the most was Command and Conquer Red Alert. Now
it's still my favorite Command and Conquer game.
I had Command and Conquer, the previous version, but that version was more mission based. Whereas Command and Conquer Red Alert, it introduced more weaponry, more ways to fight, and it also introduced the skirmish.
And Soviets and Stalin.
And it had a storyline with it, which was cool because of the videos. We talked about this last week. But even now, I mean, if you guys are interested in it, it's really cheap on Steam right now. The remastered collection, I think it's like $7.99 or something like that.
That's pretty good.
It's the graphics are much better than they were back in the day when Mike and I played it. But the original one put its hooks into me and never let go. And to this day, I love getting real-time strategy games. But it was kind of funny because I mentioned this last week. I think it was when our show was. I was in the maintenance department at the Postal Service, and we were mobile. And so if there was a Best Buy, I was stopping, because I wanted to go into Best Buy, because back in those days, they had the games were boxed, and the boxes they had really cool box art, and they were somewhat large, and
the aisles were long.
And I had to go to see if there was any new real-time strategy game out. And I would, if I found something new, I would be willing to at least try it, even if it wasn't to the level of Command and Conquer. But obviously, I wasn't the only one that it influenced, because Red Alert 2's come out, Red Alert 3 has come out, and other Command and Conquer games have come out from Westwood. And so that one, it's the one. It's just the one real-time strategy game that got the ball rolling for me on that. And like I said, I didn't have my list in chronological order, but if I had to pick a number one, this would very well could be the number one most influential game for me.
Excellent.
So
that's a good one for sure. And hey, if any of you guys in the chat are interested in real-time strategy games, we did a podcast all on real-time strategy games. What was that? Was last week, wasn't it?
I believe it was last week. Actually,
so
we had Casey
you can go
on.
watch that one back.
Yeah. So Casey and I share a love for real-time strategy games. And so much so that we've been
I
kind
do
of going
too.
back and forth. And yeah, he's wanting to play some games.
Yeah, I'm not set up for that.
I do as well, but I'm so picky with them. I mean, I'm really, really picky with them. And I've actually never played any on a console that I can. No, StarCraft. I did play StarCraft. So but that's the only one that I played on a console. I mean on a computer. But I really for a console, I really dig Halo Wars, and not just because of the whole Halo thing, but the control of it is very easy on a console. They did a really good job with it. A real RTS, great, great genre.
Yep. It influenced me a lot. So those aren't the best games, but those are the ones that have most influenced us as gamers. And so I really enjoyed this show. This was a really good show. I knew that it would be very enjoyable. And picking the games was tough.
This was harder than any other game list that we've done before.
Yeah. Games can influence you. Just any game can influence you.
Well, it's funny
in-
how
in
many
this-
have just missed. Like Blaster Master could have been on my list. There's
Right.
there's so many other games like
Yeah.
Mario 3. That was certainly an influential one for me. But
Mhm.
you got to pick.
Well,
Yeah,
Pac-Man 2600 did
I mean-
influence me in a bad way.
Well, and that's still
Yeah.
influential.
It's still influential. It could have been on the list.
And we have one last plug. All of these games are okay, but they're incredible with the controller for BD Retro Mods. This brought to you by BD Retro Mods.
Right.
Which, by the way, honestly, if you guys if you need a controller for a retro system, check him out. I'll vouch for pretty much all of them because I have pretty much all of them. So, all right, guys. Hey, Dr. Scott, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great show.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate
your
it.
choices
Thank
and
you, everyone.
your insight on why you chose those games was very eye-opening, and I enjoyed hearing all of your choices tonight. So with that, we're going to sign off. If you guys are not already,
Well, he
Brian
signed
literally
off early.
signed off. If you guys are not subscribed yet, subscribe to Dr. Scott, to Mike. I think Brian even has a YouTube channel, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
He doesn't push it,
But
I don't really push it, but yeah, I do. Sorry, just
all right, subscribe there too.
I won tonight. I don't know what's happening with Streamer. Like I said, I got booted here.
I will put in a shameless plug here real quick though, Phil, because you mentioned it a little bit ago. We always beat up on you. As you know, everybody beats up on 2600 Pac-Man for you, and we've mentioned my video before. But if you've never seen my evil Pac-Man video, you got to watch it.
Oh,
and then the adventure
Thank you,
continues in another video. So if you think Phil despises Pac-Man, then watch my video. Now, my daughter thinks I truly, truly hate that game. I don't hate it as much as other games.
no, I don't. It's playable, but it's just not Pac-Man,
No,
right?
it's not.
So, but I will say this: if nothing else, that game brought Scott and I together.
Oh yeah.
When I saw that video, I saw that he had done a video on BD Retro Mods controller
I did
on
too.
his channel, and so I knew
Hyperbole.
Brian. I did know Brian, and I said, "Hey, man,
If you think that Pac-Man 2600 is the worst game, even on the Atari 2600,
No.
you need to play more games.
yeah, it's not the worst game. It isn't. It's just, and it's very playable and can actually be enjoyable at times, depending on what mood I'm in. But it's not Pac-Man. I can't call it Pac-Man. In my mind, I call it Munchie Man, and then I'll play it. So that's what gets me by. So
Give me 2600 Ms. Pac-Man any day.
yeah, that was definitely a step up. So, all right, guys, listen, appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for all that are watching, and we'll see you next time on the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. Bye bye.
Have a good night.